subjective preference. Now, because the iPhone 6 is bigger, the power button has been moved to the right side of the phone for easier access, which is a welcome design change. The one thing I do not like about the design is the rear camera that slightly protrudes outwards. If your phone is sitting on a flat table, it will wobble, which could cause slight annoyance for some people. So the new iPhone has a larger screen, which is most definitely welcome. Being exposed to numerous large screen Android smartphones has spoiled me into appreciating the extra screen real estate. Any form of media such as games, videos, or pictures are better off on a larger smartphone display, and the 4-inch on the 5S, in my opinion, simply wasn't big enough. So the 4.7-inch is a definitive step in the right direction. So let's take a look at the numbers. So the iPhone 6 comes with a 4.7-inch display with 1334 by 750 in resolution, and the pixels per inches calculate out to be 326 ppi, just like the iPhone 5S. But the iPhone 5S has a 4-inch display with 1136 by 640 in resolution. Now, because both of these phones come with the same screen ppi of 326, they are going to be quite sharp. However, the iPhone 6 does come with some improved screen technology, which will translate to better white balance, higher contrast, deeper blacks, sharper text, and extremely wide viewing angles. Alright, so let's move on to dimensions and weight. So the iPhone 6 is 138.1 millimeters high, 67 millimeters wide, only 6.9 millimeters thick, and weighs 129 grams, whereas the iPhone 5S is 123.8 millimeters high, 58.6 millimeters wide, 7.6 millimeters thick, and weighs 112 grams. I wish I could tell you that the engineers at Apple were magically able to deliver an iPhone 6 with a larger screen but a smaller form factor than the iPhone 5S, but not even Apple can achieve such a feat. So yeah, the iPhone 6 with its bigger screen is obviously taller and wider and heavier, but they did manage to make it thinner. Being thinner and having the rounded edges, it is a little more slippery, so be careful not to drop it. Alright, so let's move on to the processor and the memory. Under the hood, the iPhone 6 has a 1.4 GHz dual-core A8 processor with 64-bit architecture and 1 GB of RAM. Now that sounds horribly similar to the iPhone 5S, which is clocked at 1.3 GHz dual-core A7 processor with 64-bit architecture and 1 GB of RAM. But don't be fooled by these numbers. With the A8 chip, you do get 25% faster processor performance and 50% faster graphics performance, while drawing only 50% of the power compared to its predecessor, the A7. Now at the end of this video, I will run some benchmarks to compare the processor, memory, and graphics performance, and we will see how the numbers stack up against each other. For now, let's move on to the battery life. Both phones come with a built-in rechargeable lithium-ion battery. What really matters is the battery life, so let's break down the battery life based on type of usage. So the iPhone 6 supports a battery life of up to 14 hours of talk time on 3G, 10 hours of internet usage on 3D or LTE, and 11 hours of browsing over Wi-Fi. For media consumption, you get 11 hours of video playback and 50 hours of music playback, as well as 10 days of standby time. The iPhone 5S offers 10 hours of talk time on 3G, 8 hours of internet usage on 3G, and 10 hours of internet browsing on Wi-Fi. You get 10 hours of video playback and 40 hours of music playback, as well as 10 days of standby. Now, regardless of having a bigger screen and packing more processing power, the iPhone 6 manages to improve its battery life over the 5S. So you do get the 4 hours of extra talk time and 10 hours of extra music time, which is quite welcome. Next up, let's take a look at the camera. So there isn't much of an upgrade to the camera on the iPhone 6, at least on paper. It retains the 8 megapixels rear-facing iSight camera with the same aperture of f2.2 and the same sensor size. Most of the improvements you will notice in photo quality will be due to the upgraded A8 processor and software tweaks. So let's get some details. Both iSight cameras allow for 1080p video recording in 30 frame rates per second, but the iPhone 6 offers 1080p video recording with 30 or 60 frame rates per second, so that is a plus. And as you know, both phones are capable of recording slow motion video. However, again, the iPhone 6 offers 120 frame rates per second option and 240 frame rates per second option, whereas the iPhone 5S only allows 120 frame rates per second. So that's another plus on the iPhone 6. This means that you can freeze videos down to a crawl even better on the iPhone 6 to create some really slick looking slow motion videos that might even give you the Matrix effect. Additionally, the panorama mode now allows you to take pictures up to 43 megapixels, a bump from 28 megapixels on the 5S. Also, the new phase detection autofocus on the iPhone 6 will allow for exceptionally fast focus times. So you're not going to have any issues focusing on subjects. It's going to be instantaneous thanks to the new phase detection autofocus. Now, despite the lack of hardware upgrades, the software tweaks do bring enhancements to the camera that are worth it, but don't expect anything jaw-dropping. Just remember, the iPhone 5S was already a good camera phone, okay? So with the updates and enhancements on the iPhone 6, you get an even better camera that can potentially replace a point-and-shoot camera. And finally, the front-facing FaceTime camera is unchanged at 1.2 megapixels with only 720p video recording capabilities. So next, let's talk about the software. No advantage here, which should be obvious. Both phones run the latest version of iOS 8. iOS 8 is a fast and smooth operating system, and it will keep all iPhone fans pleased. As usual, the Apple ecosystem and the apps are top-notch. Because of its bigger size, the iPhone 6 comes with one new feature called reachability that allows you to double-tap the home screen, which slides the entire display down within the reach of your thumb. This feature is also known as the one-handed mode. The rest of the software is the story of iOS 8. There are a number of subtle improvements over the iOS 7. Just go and watch some of my iOS 8 videos to get a better feel for iOS 8. I will leave some links in the description below so you can go and watch videos pertaining to iOS 8 enhancements and updates. Alright, so we have covered a lot of ground. Now let's move on to benchmarks. Let's run two different benchmarks on these babies and see how these devices compare in horsepower. The first benchmarking tool I will run will be Geekbench 3, which will allow us to compare the processing and memory power of the iPhones. The second tool I will run is called GFX Bench, which will allow us to compare the graphics performance of these phones. So I'm not going to waste your time by showing you the entire test, since it could take up to 5 minutes. So let's start off with Geekbench and fast forward to the benchmark results right away. Alright, so as you saw, I cleared up everything in the background so nothing was running in the background. I launched Geekbench 3 and now we are running the process. So let me fast forward this to the end to see the results. Alright, so the iPhone 6 was done first. Let's wait for the iPhone 5S, and there we go. So as you can see from these results, the iPhone 6 is in fact faster than the iPhone 5S in processing and memory performance. It is not by a large margin, but I'm seeing 15 to 20% increase in performance here, which is actually not that bad at all. So let's skip to the next benchmark. Let's get out of here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to launch GFX Bench, and I'm going to show you at least one of these benchmarks. I want you guys to see what they look like. They do push the device to its limits by using graphically intensive game simulations. So let me fast forward to one of the example benchmarks, and then I'm going to give you results for all the benchmarks on this tool. Alright, so let me go to test selection, and let's choose the T-Rex benchmark, and let's click start. And I want you guys to take a look at exactly what this thing looks like. Okay, so it's loading up the T-Rex game simulation test right now. Should be coming up. And there we go. So this is a really graphic intensive 3D benchmark. Alrighty, so you can trust the results on this guy. So you can watch a little bit more here, and let's skip all the way back to the results, and there we are. So if you look at these numbers, look at the top. It says high level tests. Those are the tests that will push your device to its limits. So we're going to inspect the numbers that they produced. So Manhattan and 1080p Manhattan score on the iPhone 6 is 30.5 frame rates per second and 17.8 frame rates per second for the 1080p test. If you compare that to the iPhone produced 24.7 FPS for the first test and 12.9 FPS for the second test. And then if you move up to T-Rex, then again you have two T-Rexes. You have T-Rex 1 and 1080p T-Rex. And if you look at the results here and you compare the FPS, it is higher than the iPhone 5S on the iPhone 6. So this test definitively proves that the iPhone 6 has better graphics capability than the iPhone 5S, which was to be expected, but these numbers give you an idea of how much of a boost to expect. It doesn't look like it's 50%, but it is in the 30-40% range. So just to recap, people that do upgrade to an iPhone 6 will see a performance boost both in processor and memory and graphics performance. Let's move on to conclusion. Alright, so let's give you a conclusion. So what do? Grab an iPhone 5S or an iPhone 6? Do we upgrade or do we not upgrade? The main deciding factor is the screen size, period. If the iPhone 6 was still 4 inches, I'd tell you to go buy a 5S instead, because 5S is an amazing piece of hardware and you can grab one on the cheap. Make no mistake, 5S is still a fast and powerful little monster. However, if you want a bigger screen so you can get more screen real estate to enjoy various forms of media with more satisfaction, you should go with the iPhone 6. On the flip side, I also want to highlight that the iPhone 6 is a positive improvement over the iPhone 5S. It is a faster smartphone. It does have better battery life. It does take slightly better pictures and allows for some fantastic slow motion videos at 240 frame rates per second. But still, that screen size is what should allow you to decide. And of course, some of us just want the latest gadget on the market, which is perfectly fine. If you're one of those, go grab the iPhone 6. If you're somebody who is price conscious, you can go with the iPhone 5S, but ultimately, if you want a bigger screen on your iPhone, you will have to go with the iPhone 6. Thank you for watching this video.